Okay. So, Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. This is a famous story that the Gemara tells, and tells a story and speaks about how this ended up leading to the Chorban. This ended up leading to the destruction of the temple. And we often speak about sinat chinam. Sinat chinam is causeless hatred. And it always seems a little bit strange, because usually if we have a dislike for somebody, there's a reason for it. I don't just, bump into a stranger and say, oh, I'm going to hate this person, right? Usually there is some sort of a basis for it. So from this story, in addition to some of the more classic sources, we'll also get a sense of what this sinat chinam, right, is about. Sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Okay? So let's hear the story as the Gemara tells this story. We have it both in Hebrew. Are there some extra source sheets? You want to send them down over here? Good. Thanks. I've used 2 over here, and any other ones over there. There you go. And there she goes. Okay. And we should be okay. Okay. So the Gemara tells, it's a little bit, in English it's straight through. In the Hebrew, we're starting here. We're going to jump to there and then go to there, because we're different segments of the Gemara. So the second line in the Hebrew and the middle of the first line in English. Kamtza, actually the end of the first line. Kamtza and Bar Kamtza. Because of a fellow by the name of Kamtza and another fellow by the name of Bar Kamtza, Charuv Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim was destroyed. What is the story here? Tahu Gavra. There was a person. Good. Can I get you something? Tahu Gavra. There was a man. Derachame Kamtza. And his buddy was Kamtza. Ubal Dibabe. And his enemy was a fellow by the name of Bar Kamtza. Avad Su'udata. And this fellow, who was unnamed throughout, he made a Su'udah, right? Through a wedding party. A Su'udah, a festive meal. A wedding party, we'll say. Amalei L'Shameh, and he told his attendant, Zil Aiti Li Kamtza, make sure you invite Kamtza, my buddy, to the wedding. The messenger got confused, Azal, and he went, Aiti Le Bar Kamtza. And instead he invited Bar Kamtza. Ata, he came to at his wedding feast that he has, all of his guests are there. Ashkechei Dehavi Yativ. He sees his enemy, this Bar Kamtza, who he was in business with perhaps, and this guy was a scandal, and he stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from the business, and he suffered as a result of this terribly. He sees this guy is sitting at the wedding. Amar Lei, and he said to Michli Hal Gavra, Bal Devavi Dal Gavrahu, you are my enemy. My boit hacha. What are you doing here? Kum, puk. Get up. Up and out. Amar Lei. Bar Kamtza started to plead with him and said, Hoil va'atai, I'm here. Right? Now this guy didn't know that Bar Kamtza had mistakenly been invited. Here, he was invited to his enemy's wedding. He probably thought, oh, maybe we can get past this. That was so gracious of him to invite me. I wasn't expecting an invitation. How gracious of him to invite me. Good, maybe we could put this behind us. He said, since I'm here already, Shavkan, let me stay. I will pay you the cost of my meal. Whatever I eat, whatever I drink, I'll pay for. Up to this side over here now on the page, in Hebrew, let's follow in Hebrew. In English, let's continue. Amalei, the wedding host, said to him, lo, absolutely not. I'll pay half of the catering bill, half of the cost of this entire meal. Amalei lo. He said no. Amalei, he said to him, kula sudatech. I'll pay for the entire su'uda. I'll pay for the entire wedding. Amalei, he said to him, lo, no. Nakte biadeh, took him by the hand. Okme, lifted him up. Afge, and removed him. This Bar Kamtza was furious. Amar, he said, Hoyel v'aviyatvi rabbanan. The rabbis were sitting there. V'lo michubei. And they didn't protest. They didn't do anything to diffuse the situation. They saw it happen. They allowed it to happen. They, Shmamina, I see, kanechalahu. They're okay with this. They condone such behavior. Ezel, I will go. Echel buhu kortza bei malka. I will slander the Jewish people to the king.
But he himself is Jewish.
Look at some of the greatest anti-Israel activists today.
Yes.
Azal, he went. Amalei leKesar, and he said to the Caesar or to the governor, whoever that might have been, Mardu b'cha Yehudai. The Jews are rebelling against you. Amalei said to him, Mi Yemar, who's to say? What indication is there that that is true? Amalei shadaluhu karbana. I'll tell you how you'll see that that's the case. Send a sacrifice for them to offer in the temple. Chazit, and see. See if they'll offer your sacrifice. They won't offer your sacrifice. They're not interested in your welfare. They're rebelling against you. That seemed to be a reasonable way of ascertaining how the Jews actually felt about him. Azal, he went, Shadar Bey Agla Tilta. And he sent a very beautiful third-born calf, a beautiful, beautiful calf, as a sacrifice. Bahade de Ka'ate, as they were going, Shada Bey Muma, very, very quietly, this Bar Kamtza put a blemish onto the animal. How? B'niv svatayim. Either on his lips, the animal's lip, or by the animal's eye. Duchta, a place, Jiladidan, that according to our standards, the Jewish standards of sacrifices, Havimuma, that's a blemish. And we're not able to sacrifice such an animal. Now down over here in the Hebrew, Uladidhu lav mumahu. But according to them, according to the Gentiles, that's hardly noticeable. What, a little slit on the lip, right? When it was eating the grass, there's a little thorn, and it got a little slit there on the lip. So what? According to them, it's not a mum. Well, they come to Yerushalayim, they come to the Beit HaMikdash, to the temple, and the rabbis there examine the animal sent by the Caesar, and they see it has this little blemish. Sovar Rabbanan lirakruve. The rabbis felt the proper thing to do was to bring it as a sacrifice. Mishum shalom malchut. Right? Normally we would not, but we have our good relations with the governing power at stake over here. And therefore they thought shalom malchut, right? This can turn into a life or death situation. So therefore, right, life or death situation, Shabbos becomes not Shabbos, Yom Kippur becomes not Yom Kippur. That's what they thought to do. Amar lahu Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulas. Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulas spoke up and said to them, we can't. Yomru bale mumin kraven. People will say, we'll be teaching a wrong Torah teaching over here. And for generations, people will think you're allowed to sacrifice an animal with a blemish. Kraven the Gavi Mizbeach. So he said, you can't bring it. Savar lemigdale. Right? They realized this is life or death. This fellow has turned into what is halachically called a rodef. A rodef is someone who is pursuing you to try to kill you. The halacha there is turn around and stop him. If the only way to stop him is by killing him, turn around and kill him. This Bar Kamtza is trying to kill us. They thought, lemigdale, we'll kill him. That he won't be able to go back and say anything to the Caesar. Once again, Amalu Rabbi Zechariah. Zechariah spoke up and said, we can't do that. Yomru, people will say, Matil mum bekadashim yareg. The punishment for putting a blemish onto a sacrificial animal is a death penalty. And that's not true. So they didn't sacrifice it. They didn't stop Bar Kamtza. He went back with his proof, and this led to the destruction. The Caesar was furious. He first came, he ended up doubling back, sent someone else. And the Gemara says this led to the destruction of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yochanan says, An vitanuto, this humility of Rabbi Zechariah ben Avkulas, and that's a strange term to use it. Rabbi Zechariah is the one who kept speaking up. You can't put a blemish on, lest people will say, blemishing an animal is capital punishment. You can't kill him, lest people will say. See, we might have thought the decisiveness of Rabbi Zechariah, or the chumrah, the strictness. We say the humility of Rabbi Zechariah, hechariva et beitenu. That is what led to the destruction of our house. V'sarfa et hechalenu, and it burned our heichal, our temple. V'higlitanu me artseinu, and that is what exiled us from our land. This is the tragic story of Kamtza Bar Kamtza. We're going to see some of the classic points on this, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. Rabbi Avigdor Nebenzal. I have this not in only Hebrew, but I'll translate. He asked, Maya Cheshbon, what was the calculation of Rabbi Zechariah? V'chilo yada, did he not know? If we insult the Caesar, that's going to lead to a war. And does he not know that Pikuach Nefesh is dochet ha'isur, that Pikuach Nefesh, saving lives, overrides any prohibition of sacrificing a blemished animal on the Mizbeach, on the altar? She explains as follows. Certainly you can go against a prohibition to save a life. 10 prohibitions. Shabbos, Yom Kippur, you name it. We override it in order to save a life. But to uproot the Torah, that we don't do to save a life. If you're going to teach a din lo nachon, you're going to teach a halacha improperly, that halacha will then go out for generations. That the Beit Din, the court of Rabbi Zechariah, ruled that Bali Mum and blemished animals go onto the altar. And that will uproot the Torah. And uprooting the Torah, we don't save a life and thereby uproot the Torah. He writes, that's how Rav Chaim Shmuelevitz, who was the great mashkiach of the Mir Yeshiva in Mir, Russia, in Shanghai, and eventually in Israel, how he explains it. But now Rav Nemazal asks, if that's the case, so what was his mistake? The Gemara said that it was his humility that led to the destruction of the temple and the burning. Where was he wrong? What was his mistake? Rav Nemazal writes, I think the mistake was as follows. Shechorban HaMikdash, the resultant destruction of the temple, Upizor Yisroel, and our being scattered amongst the nations, which came about as a result of his not wanting to uproot the Torah with a wrong ruling, led to a greater uprooting of the Torah than he could have ever imagined. Because we're spread out all over the world. One chacham, one Torah sage doesn't see his friend. Rav Alfasi is sitting in Spain, and he's reaching his halachic conclusions. Rashi is sitting in France, reaching his conclusions. Maimonides, the Rambam, is there in Egypt, reaching his conclusions. And our Torah has become split into all of these different Torahs. We have the Torah of the Rif, of the Rambam, of the Rosh, of the Ramban, of the Rashba, and all the other leaders of Israel, going right to our generation. That is the greatest uprooting of the Torah. His mistake was that he didn't realize that it would be a greater bitul Torah, annulment of the Torah, as a result of this exile. That's how he explains it. Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, who was one of the great Kabbalists, lived in Tzfat, in 1600s, 1700s, died very young. He was, at first, they wanted to put him into excommunication because of his views, which were out of the box. And he was later recognized as one of the greatest Kabbalists, and many of our great Musar Svarim, Mesilat Yesharim, Path of the Just, Derech Hashem, Das Tfunos, all come from him. He writes, we have it both in Hebrew and in English. What you have to realize is, in his book, Mesilat Yesharim, he goes through the levels of ascending righteousness. And he has chapters on Chasidut, being very, very righteous. And he writes, don't judge it by your first impression, your first glance, by the exterior, the superficial. You need to look in deeply. Where and what will this lead to? Sometimes the action seems like it's a great thing to do. Told us wrote, because of what will lead to, you have to put it aside. And were he to do that which seems to be a very righteous, wonderful thing, That would be a sinner, not a chassid. V'abayit hasheni now. I'm here in Hebrew and here in the English. V'abayit hasheni, and the second temple, gamhu charav, that was destroyed, al yidei chasidut kazeh, by such an act of superficial chasidut. Asher lo nishkal b'mishkal tzedek, that it was not weighed with the proper weights. It was not, didn't have the proper foresight, b'maseh, in the case of Bar Kamtza. Amru, and we said that in the Gemara that we just quoted, the rabbis wanted to bring the sacrifice. No, we can't. People will mistakenly say that Bali Mumin are brought on the altar. They wanted to kill him. He said, no, Matil Mum, B'kachim Yareg. So this seemed to be Chasidut. He seemed to be so righteous, so scrupulous. But he didn't look further. And it led to the Chorban Beit HaMikdash.
Also, it seems like you could, there were 69 other people on the Sanhedrin. They could have been more contemplative.
They could have overruled him, yeah.
And
yeah.
Also, it need not be, there's many places in the Gemara where they say it's a single case or only in this particular type of ill.
Right.
And so it needn't have been a precedent.
Correct. That's why he's lambasted for this. A fascinating piece for Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rav Moshe Feinstein came to the States and lived in the States, passed away in the 1990s, I believe. And he was the posek. He was the halachic decider of Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. And he took on questions that others were afraid to touch. And he had the knowledge and, we said, the broad shoulders to issue rulings on this. And in this teshuvah, in this response, he actually addresses his role as he sees it. Umasha katav yididi, I'll translate it in English. And what my dear one wrote to me. How can we rely on these type of chidushim, these new ideas that I've explained lamasa, and I apply it to the halacha? Ubeprachu neged eza acherot, and I'm going against what other people have said. Hineani omer, I say as follows. Right? Has the Torah reached its end? Is there nothing more, nothing new to apply the Torah to? That we can only rule that which earlier people have already ruled in earlier books? And when questions come up that were not found in the earlier sources, we should not decide them? Even if we have the ability to decide it? We always have to, it's always easier to say, no, you can't. No, you can't is very, very safe. Yes, you can. Oh, that takes the shoulders. So Moshe said, what, should we say anything that hasn't been ruled about? Or we say, no, you can't, no, you can't, no, you can't? Is the Torah not meant to be this living, breathing organism, so to speak, that keeps applying to us? The way I see it, asulomar came. It's forbidden to take such an approach. The Vadai Od Yagdil Torah. The Torah will continue to become greater and greater, also in our days. And someone who has the ability to decide based on the sources when it comes to his hand, and he can investigate in the Shas, the entire Talmud, and the earlier halachic rulings, with an understanding about what the principles are, and to bring proofs to back up his opinion, even if it is a din chadash, even if it is a new ruling that others have not spoken about, That's what you have to do. Ach ein liot gas b'hora. You can't become haughty in your rulings. And you have to hold back when you can. But when there's a need, and the case over there was an igun, was finding a way for a woman that we did not know what the status was of her husband, to find a way to allow her to get married, like this case, certainly we're obligated to rule if we find a way to say it's permitted. And it's asur for us to be from the humble ones. Humble ones, remember that? The humility of Rabbi Zechariah will soon see. And to cause a daughter of Israel to be an aguna, to be locked up and not be able to get married. Or to cause her to stumble with prohibited activities. Or even to save people from losing money. And look in Gittin, the Gemara that we just saw. It was the humility of Zechariah that destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. Why do we say his humility? What does that have to do with humility? And others explain that this came, it was a mistaken humility. Who am I to say that in order to save lives we should go against? Who am I to say we should go against this halacha of bringing a blemished animal? I don't know what it will lead to. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. That's unknown. What is known is I'm breaking halacha. That was his humility. Who am I to go against the halacha? Who am I to say he should be killed? Who am I to say we should bring the sacrifice? And it was this humility, Rav Moshe said, that led to what it led to. So to here, literally the same thing over here, we've got to act to find the proper halacha for the proper situation. Let's go back to this story. And our David Foreman points out something I think is very, very insightful and really helps us relate it to ourselves. I'm the host of the wedding. And I see my arch enemy is there. What do I start to think? I see red. He knows I didn't want him here. I don't know about the invitation. He crashed my wedding. Why is he here at my daughter's wedding? Happiest day of my life. Why is he here at my daughter's wedding? He wants to make sure I don't enjoy my daughter's wedding. Look, we all have the stories we tell ourselves. Right? This shouldn't sound so foreign. Maybe it sounds foreign to you. It doesn't sound foreign to me. We all have the stories we tell ourselves. We know why this person did what he did. We know exactly why. I know exactly what he was thinking. I know exactly why he did that. You ever find yourself saying that? I know exactly why he came to the wedding. He wanted to destroy the most special night of my life. The date I'm marrying off my daughter. Wait. That's why he wanted to do this. Am I justifiably angry according to the story I'm telling myself? Yes. I'm justifiably angry. I am justifiably angry. This is the story I have in my head. Why else is he here? He wasn't invited. Why else is he here? Who asked him to come here? I am justifiably angry. And then what happens? I go to him. And I see that he is trying to quell the situation. He's not here to fight with me. He's not here to ruin my wedding. But why is he here? Hey, 1 second. Where's Kamtza? Oh, where's Kamtza? Maybe there was a mix-up. Maybe there was a mix-up. If so, who should I be angry with?
The messenger.
The messenger. Who made a mess out of his being a messenger. Right? It's the messenger. Now, I should still, I still don't like this Bar Kamtza guy. But it's not what I thought it was. So what should I do at that point? Dial it back. Dial it back. But instead, I don't get off of my horse. Once I was justifiably angry, now, I should be a little bit upset with this Bar Kamtza guy because whatever old beef we have, and I should be a little bit upset at the messenger, but I'm taking all of that anger and putting it on Bar Kamtza. Sometimes it happens. We're understandably, if not justifiably, upset about something. Right? Something happened at work, something happened wherever it is. And we come home and we take it out on whoever's at home. What do? I'm justifiably angry, but I put it on to the wrong person. So sinat chinam doesn't necessarily mean baseless hatred. What it means is the level of animosity that I'm feeling is baseless. Not that I shouldn't have some. Right? I don't meet someone, hi, nice to meet you. I hate you. Right? That's a psychopathic baseless hatred. We don't contend with that. But someone does something and we ramp it up. We ramp it up. I'd like to tell the story that I was at a Shiva minyan, and the person who was sitting Shiva was not so familiar with the Kaddish and needed to say it at a very slow pace. There's someone else who was visiting who was also saying Kaddish. And that person started to say Kaddish at a usual clip. He wasn't saying a fast clip, he was saying it at the usual clip. But I knew the usual clip was too fast for the mourner. So I told that person, slow down. Right? I just motioned to him to slow down. A few days later I hear that Mr. X is furious with you, Rabbi. Why is he furious with me? I love, he'll say, Rabbi, I'm so sorry to tell you this. I said, don't be sorry. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Why is he furious with me? I didn't even recall that interaction when I asked him to slow down. He said at the Shiva minyan, you told him to shush up. Slow down. Shush up. Easily misunderstood. I said, thank you for letting me know that. I called the person, I apologized, I explained, and his anger came down. From being shushing me up to maybe doing something that was somewhat ambiguous. Whatever. But we need to adjust. The proprietor, the host of the wedding, never adjusted. He took that original anger from the story he told himself and never stepped down from it. It should have been the messenger and this guy. It's all on this guy. Along comes, oh, yeah.
On the same theme that you're raising, let's look at Bar Kamtza. He was perhaps justifiably angry at the host of the wedding.
Beautiful.
But because the rabbis of the community were there and they didn't intervene, he decided to condemn the entire nation.
Exactly.
So I'm thinking,
Exactly the same thing. Good. Let's go to Bar Kamtza now.
well, what about the rabbis who were?
One second.
They were informed.
One second. One second. Let's go to Bar Kamtza now. Let's go to Bar Kamtza now. How angry should he be?
Well, first there was the possible public humiliation.
I think he is justifiably furious.
You know, because he thinks he's
Humiliated publicly. I was invited to come to the wedding. He doesn't know about the mess of the messenger. I was invited to come to the wedding. Right? He invited me to come to the wedding in order to publicly humiliate me and throw me out. I offered to pay for my meal, for half the meal, for the entire meal. And he threw me out. And the rabbis. So how angry should he be at the host? Very angry. He might be able to dial it back a little bit to think, perhaps there was a mix-up. I was there, his buddy Kamtza was not there. Right? Well, it must have been, right? Perhaps he could have dialed it back. At the rabbis?
A lot. More than that.
Okay. I don't think more. I don't think more than the host. Right? Did the rabbis know exactly what was happening?
But they are
Did the rabbis know exactly what was happening? I've had situations, right? Rabbi, how could you have... I was in the room. Did I see exactly what was going on? You've been to weddings? You know what's happening at every table? Right?
Nobody knew what was happening.
Right? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Right? Angry at the rabbis? If they were at the table, then they should have intervened. That was wrong. Granted. So he's taking whatever level of justifiable anger that he has at the wedding host. And whatever level of justifiable anger that he has at the rabbis that were there. And what's he doing with that? He's turning it on to the entire nation. Every single Jew. So you're taking your justifiable anger and you are misdirecting it. You have all of this collateral damage. All of this collateral damage that's going on. That's having a bad day at work and yelling at the spouse, yelling at the kids, yelling at whoever calls on the phone. Unless it's a telemarketer. Right? Unless it's a telemarketer. Maybe he'll stop calling other people also. But they also have to earn a living. They also have to earn a living. Whatever. I'm not going to go into telemarketers now. The sinat chinam is not this baseless, unwarranted, coming out of nowhere animosity and hatred. What it is a misdirect. It's a not dialing it back. It's allowing ourselves to get so incensed that we literally see red. And there's no stepping back. And then there's the carnage of all of the peripheral damage, the collateral damage they call it in warfare terms. All the collateral damage that goes on. And that's the sinat chinam over here. And, as the commentators that we saw spoke about, having the strength, right? Not the false humility of who am I to get involved. No. You've got to get involved. With, as the Ramchal said, with Einav Barosho. Right? It might look like it's good for you to get involved. Maybe it's not good to get involved. It might look like it's good for you to not get involved. Think deeper. Maybe you should get involved. We always have to, Ezehu Chacham Haroa et HaNolad. A wise person is one who sees that which will result from my actions. We look ahead and we get a sense. But it was this jumping all over one another, that was the tone and the mood that led to the Chorban. Those that point out an interesting thing, I just, 1 second. All right. I understand why we're mentioning Bar Kamtza. Right? Bar Kamtza was the one who, right, did all the slandering. Why are we mentioning the name Kamtza? What did he do wrong? What did he do wrong? He never got the invitation. What do you want from him? Right? So you want to say, oh, we're saying Kamtza Bar Kamtza because there was the mix-up of the very similar names. Right? But I think I heard in the name of the Brisker Rav. Right? Kamtza was also at fault. I wasn't invited. I'm not going to go. I wasn't invited. Now, granted, you're not invited, you don't necessarily go and sit down and help yourself to the meal. Right? But a good friend of mine from my high school years, we actually were in yeshiva for a couple of years afterwards. And then we fell out of touch. I heard that his wife had passed away, and I traveled in. It was Menachem Avel. I paid a shiva call, and he very much appreciated. You know, when you're hurting like that, there's something about old friends that just helps to, that resonates. We again were out of touch. Years later, I hear he's getting married. And the wedding's going to be in Muncie, in one of the halls in Muncie. I was living in Muncie at the time. Fantastic. Put on my suit, put on my tie. Right? I went to the wedding. In the middle of the dancing, as he's dancing, I came in, go there, I grabbed him, we started dancing together. I wasn't invited. But you know, he couldn't invite everybody. But I went. I added to his simcha. We danced together. It was nice. So those that say that, you know, that Kamtza is also somewhat involved, right? And that's also something that was an issue that we contend with also. That sometimes we stand on ceremony instead of saying, you know, I was looking at my wedding album. This is interesting. My granddaughter wanted to know what I look like with hair.
We all do.
So
Bring the album.
you'll get a smile. So I'll bring a picture next week. So my wife took out her wedding album. So I was looking through the wedding album. Now I was pretty limited in terms of how many friends I could have because you know it's expensive. I probably had like 20, 25 friends, which is not a small amount. Looking through, I didn't know the names. I didn't know the names of a lot of the close friends who made the short list of coming to my wedding. Now, granted, it was a while ago, right? But I don't remember their names. You know, and some of the things that we stand on ceremony about, that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in this case 37 years from now, right, it's going to be so unimportant, they're not even going to remember their names. So why stand on ceremony now and let it eat you up and get inside? Who needs it? All right, we're just, you know, the greatest word is corrosive. Right? It's corrosive. It's eating you up. So why allow it to eat you up? Who's being harmed by this? By this natira, by this keeping it? You are. You're turning into a person. Who wants that? Who needs that? No one around you wants that or needs that. You certainly don't want to be around yourself, if that's what you're going to be. So this Kamtza and Bar Kamtza story actually has a lot that applies to us in our day-to-day dealings. Ida, you want to just be with?
That's all right. I was going to comment before, but it's all right.
You good?
Covered it.
Okay. Yes, Linda.
I'm kind of wondering about the host felt very comfortable to come over and say these things. What about the rest of the people that were there?
Yeah.
Spoiled the joy from the wedding.
Yeah. But again, with the story the host told himself initially, if that is the story he told himself, right? You come here to ruin my wedding,
Something else.
right? Thanks, but no thanks.
Is hospitality
That's the door.
one of the commandments?
Sure.
So,
Sure. Yes. You know, so I invite Shabbos guests. If a Shabbos guest comes to my house to try to ruin my Shabbos, then I'll say, you know, maybe we'll get together on Tuesday instead.
If someone comes, even an enemy comes to your house, you treat him as a guest.
I would. If he's coming as a guest, if he's coming to fight, maybe I won't welcome him.
It could be interpreted as an element of fighting because he was